Hey there, everybody. This video is all about This Is Us Season 5, Episode 7. When the episode aired on Tuesday, we hadn't seen the promo yet for what was coming up, so we didn't see the fiery scene and Kevin and the calls and all of the just frenzy that we have all been worked into since then.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the promo, what we saw, what we think is actually going on in there, because they were real vague with everything that's in there. I mean, is that Kevin's car? Is that someone else's car? Was this somebody else's accident? Kevin happened to be driving by? There's a lot of different things to go into here.
Just one thought off the top here. Why are you doing this to us? This Is Us. It's like we just resolved one big mystery. We can't even have a week to just sort of sit here and process that.
Not with this show.
Okay, well, if you guys enjoy this discussion as we're going on our own sort of mental road trip here for answers, be sure to subscribe to the channel. That's right, analogies for the win. And if
you make me laugh.
If you guys do want to support us a little bit more, we have a link in the description to the store where we have shirts, mugs, other cool stuff. Some of them feature the mug here of Coco Vanderwolf, who is just trying to quietly sit in the lap and be obedient. She agreed to join us in this video. We're so lucky.
And just in case you are new to our channel, we do This Is Us reviews after every single episode. They're always up on Tuesday night, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss.
Okay, so where we begin here, I think let's just first of all set the table for what exactly it is we're kind of looking at in this promo.
Yeah, okay, so we see that there's a car, it's crashed, we see Kevin's ID on the ground, really far away from this car, and then we hear this sort of over voice of Kevin talking. We hear him talking, it sounds like maybe to someone at a hospital or maybe 911, talking about that there's been this accident. And then we also hear him talking to Madison, where she is like, yeah, this is happening, get here quick. And that's all we got.
Okay, so what we know is that Kevin has been up in Vancouver where he's been working on a movie. Clearly, he got some sort of notice that things were kicking off here. He's gotten to his car and he's just like, all right, I got to get home as soon as humanly possible.
Okay, so looking just at the way this car accident looks like it's set up, we saw this car kind of crashed further away, really far from this ID pan that they then went on to. So I know the automatic thing is to think that that's Kevin's car and here's Kevin's ID, but for Kevin's ID to be thrown from the car that far, one, it has to not be in his pocket because it wouldn't have thrown at all. So he must have gotten in, thrown it on the dash. But that's a pretty serious impact for it to fly out the window that far. We saw the car was sort of crashed like this and the ID is over here. So it would have to fly out the sort of side window or the back window to get over there. It's not going to fly out the front and then make a curve around and land where it's landing. So my guess is that particular car is not actually Kevin's, that either Kevin has been driving by and saw this happening and maybe he dropped his wallet, or what I really think is he hit this car crashed, he also crashed, maybe his car's off to the side and we don't see it. We all know that Kevin's going to be okay in the future. We have seen him 10 years from now. Yeah. He is A-okay.
I think what I've been trying to think about with this ID situation here is that, yeah, it doesn't seem feasible that Kevin's ID is just going to boomerang around. It also doesn't seem feasible that Kevin's going to be like, let me just put my ID here on the ground. So if it's a situation where maybe he's running somewhere or he sees, like you said, somebody who has been in a car accident, he decides to be, good Samaritan, try to help. Maybe he just forgets his ID. I don't know why he would drop it, but...
Well, an accident. If he's like, oh my goodness, here's this car, let me run out. If it's in his jacket and he's running, maybe it pops out. But I just don't think so. I really think he has hit somebody. And that's why that first part of the conversation, it's kind of I got to get to my babies, and I got to get to Madison sort of thing. That he's talking to somebody because he's being held. He's either being held at the hospital for observation or he's being held by the police because he hit somebody. That's what I think is going on. And that his car off screen, closer to where his ID is, he probably came in, threw it on the dash or threw it beside, in the cup holder or whatever. And when he crashed, it flew out the window.
I had thought initially that it might have been he was talking to a 911 operator and trying to give information, though at the same time, I don't know, why would the 911 operator need to know all the details about Madison and what he's going off in order to do, unless it's like a situation where I can't stay here very long and this is why I have to go ahead and go, but if you could send someone, that would be very much appreciated.
Yeah, but if he did hit this person, he can't leave.
No, that's
so
the problem.
That might be why he's kind of trying to talk his way out of it, to be like, listen, I know that this is a thing, this has happened, this is who I am, this is where I'll be, see you later, which is not going to work out for him. He's going to be delayed.
Yeah, I just hope that where we're going here, that it's not in some sort of like Kevin hit and run scenario where Kevin ends up in jail as opposed to the hospital. It's going to really bum me out.
Yeah, I don't see him doing that. But at the same time, I mean, Kevin's very impulsive.
Yeah.
Gets even more sort of, when he's frantic, he becomes even more impulsive, where he's just kind of like, oh man, I know this is really terrible. Let me write a note and call 911 and continue on my way. But I feel like he has been on such a path right now of sort of trying to change a bit of that. I know he's in a frantic state. This is sort of one of his first times since being on this path to a bit more maturity, a bit more stability, that he's really come up against something that's very difficult.
Let me throw out another idea here. Let's say this is Kevin's car. This is his accident. He gets out. He's stumbling around. Maybe he's got a concussion or something's going on. He drops his ID. He ends up maybe hitchhiking with someone, as strange as that is.
During a pandemic? I sure hope not.
It's very, very strange.
But concussion.
Crazy things kind of do happen in weird circumstances, and if he's in the middle of nowhere, he may be really, really desperate, and maybe this person recognizes him because he's a celebrity or something like that. But they focused on that ID so much that him not having it somewhere down the road, like, that's gotta be important. Like, maybe he gets pulled over or somebody stops him and he doesn't have it.
Yeah, because they actually didn't need to show that ID to show that Kevin's involved. They did that with the phone call. That was enough to be like, hey, there's been this accident, or this is what's happening, and, Kevin, get here really quick. That was enough. They didn't need to show the ID.
Let's just talk about the logistics of Kevin's trip and Madison's pregnancy, because you did a lot of research on sort of mapping out the timing of all this.
Yeah, because we read your comments all the time. We're in there with you guys. We've seen lots of different questions. What's the timeline of Kevin being out there, her having the babies? Why is he driving home? Aren't the borders closed? I have answers to all this stuff. I've done a lot of research. And also we have a bit of life experience with some of this stuff, especially when it comes to the borders being closed. And I use it like this because people can still cross, and we'll talk about that. Okay. But first, we're going to talk about Kevin and Madison and the timeline. So some people were having a bit of confusion of how far along is Madison when he goes up to Vancouver. Some people were thinking she's 5 months, she's 6 months, she's 7 months. 7 months is the correct answer. That is where she is. So not in the last episode, but the episode before, Kevin was saying, when they were discussing him going up to Canada, he was like, oh man, I don't know if I should go. It's 2 weeks quarantine, 2 weeks filming, and then I'm back. And she says, well, that will bring you back in plenty of time, because then you still have 5 weeks. So she's 7 months pregnant. She's just about to be 7 months pregnant.
Yeah.
What's weird about this situation is that anybody out there that's had multiple babies, twins, triplets, so forth, that they usually is a very high percentage that they are going to come early, 5 weeks early. It's not that unheard of. I've got twin cousins. They came early. My best friend is a twin. They came early. My best friend's twin had twins, came early. This is a thing that is pretty, normal. And I'm kind of surprised that Dr. Horse did not tell them By the way, 5 weeks, you might think that you're going to carry to term, and maybe you will, but probably not. So, Kevin being like, 4 weeks, and her being like, it's plenty of time. Plenty of time. I got 5 weeks after that. You probably don't.
Dr. Horse, you're spending too much time with your horses and not enough time with Madison to clearly educate her or make it clear to her as to what's going on. I mean, maybe she and Kevin did have these conversations and Kevin was like, okay, well, I'll still be back at a time when you won't be at 9 months. So in case, the babies come early, but that is still a risk. And the part of this that's surprising to me the most is that it seems like Kevin from that phone call with Randall is super, super frantic and he's sort of freaking out. Like, shouldn't you have come up with at least somewhat of a plan in case something like this happened?
Yeah. And also, Kevin is from a multiple pregnancy. And I mean, I mentioned my cousins, my best friend, her twins. They all have come from multiple pregnancies and they know that they were all born early. So I would think, and I mean, I haven't gone back to watch way, way, way back, but, we had Rebecca delivering triplets, and I feel like they probably came early, too.
Yeah, and I think if nothing else, at some point over the course of Kevin's life, he would have heard some of this from Rebecca if they asked questions about their birth story or anything kind of along those lines.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they did, so I'm mostly surprised, even though, yes, Kevin is a little bit wild and a little bit irresponsible, back in the day, but now that this is happening, he has been changing a lot, and I'm kind of surprised he just wouldn't have asked that question and be like, hey, I came early. I was a set of triplets. What are the chances of this happening? No, yeah, they're pretty high.
Yeah, and as you said, the border issue here, from what we've been able to tell, this is probably not that much of an issue for Kevin.
Yeah, okay, so the border issue.
Yeah.
The border issue, how this is going on right now is, yes, they are closed. And the reason that they're closed between U.S. and Canada is because of the pandemic. They don't want people visiting family, like, hey, I want to go see whoever up in Canada or whoever down in the US. They don't want people traveling for fun. They don't want people visiting friends. So you cannot drive across. However, if you are immigrating, you can drive across. We know somebody who just did it in October and is now living here. And he drove across. And then also my cousin, he drove from Toronto down to his job at UPenn. That happened in July and the borders were closed then too. The other thing is, even if you're not immigrating, if you are a citizen of that country, they are not going to turn you away. So if Kevin goes to the border, the borders aren't closed, there are people there. So if he goes to the border, he's like, listen, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm driving back. I need to get across. My partner is in labor. I need to get across. I live here. Then they're going to allow you. If you're a permanent resident or you are a citizen, they're not going to turn you away.
No, I think that just from that alone, plus the synopsis, which indicates that Kevin's going on a road trip, it's clear he gets across the border. That is not the problem that Kevin clearly runs into here. So
the other question I've seen a lot online is, why is Kevin driving home? Why isn't he just taking a plane or chartering a private plane? Yeah. So here's the thing with Kevin. We've seen him, 10 years in the future where he looks like he's mega rich at that point.
Yeah.
He has built a mansion from scratch on the cabin land. So at that point, he's got money to burn.
Yeah.
At this point in his career, he's doing okay, but he is not wealthy. We've seen the house that they're in. This is not a private plane kind of house. I don't think he can afford that if, I'm kind of just looking at how it is. He's not that rich. Now, the other problem is if he takes a regular plane, he is probably going to have to quarantine. So that will take him away from Madison and the babies longer if he wants to be really safe and he wants to make sure that nothing happens to them, because planes are really packed. There is, a percentage, a chance that you are going to get this on the plane. And he's, driving is the safest way. We actually just saw with one of our favorite YouTubers, Chris Clemens, who we really like. He wanted to go back and spend 3 or 4 weeks with his mom across the country, and he didn't want to take a chance that he was going to infect her, hurt her, anything like that. So he drove all the way from out here across the country to be safe.
Yeah, and I think in general, it's the safest option in terms of you're lessening the risk of infection. But there are also a lot of other problems, clearly, that can go wrong on a road trip. I think ask anyone who's been on a road trip, and
of course, there's always problems that can happen on a road trip. I know that when we were driving from Canada down here, somebody hit I had a carport on the back of my truck and some big giant truck hit that. Things do happen. Yeah. However, I've also made that trip back and forth from Vancouver down here and nothing has happened.
Yeah, so I would hope that this trip would be okay for Kevin. Clearly, it's not going to be, but the other sort of big fundamental question that I sort of have out of all of this is there something else impacting Kevin's urgency to come down beyond just, the babies are getting ready to be born? Because it sounded as though, from the message that we got from Madison in the promo, it doesn't sound as though she's in dire straits. It sounds as though she's okay. We don't know the precise timing of when she's talking with him in relation to his trip, but it doesn't sound like she is in any, particular added sort of peril.
Okay, so this is where we're going to talk about the biggest theory that's been going on for a long time, is that Madison's going to die in childbirth. So we've been sort of on the hill that that's just not going to happen. I mean, in the U.S., the percentage of women that die in childbirth is super low. It's like out of hundreds of thousands of babies that are born a year, 800 of the mothers died. That's it. That's how low this is. And because this is a show that is based more in reality, I don't know if they're going to go that way. It's also just, we know that Kevin is well off enough that she's going to have pretty good medical care. She's been being closely monitored. She knows and has spoken to Dr. Horse about her past eating disorder, so that's been being monitored. She's already at 7 months. She's been pretty healthy. There's been no storyline indicating at all that her eating disorder is coming into any kind of play. They had that storyline where she was like, oh, I have this picture of my ultrasound up on the fridge to remind me that I got to make sure I stay healthy. I got to make sure that I eat. And it helps. And I've been doing it. So health-wise, she's been fine. And then she made that call. She was on the phone. So she's well enough to make a phone call to Kevin or be on the phone with Kevin. I just don't see it happening. I don't. There's more story to be mined for Kevin, in my opinion, if she is alive. Whether she marries him or doesn't, and there's a co-parenting storyline, there is way more story to be mined than sort of the short term. She dies, now Kevin's got these twins. Where's it go from there?
I think that she survives, but that they don't eventually end up working out. That's where I'm going to sort of settle on this, because I think we're all asking a lot if This Is Us ends and all of the big three are in the relationships that they're in right now and they're all happy. We all want life to work like that, but life doesn't always work like that. And so that's sort of where I kind of lean with all of this, because it just feels like this is Kevin's story. This isn't Madison's story coming up.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and we've mentioned this before, and it might come into play, it might not, but the actress that plays Madison is married to the creator of the show. And like I said, it may come into play, it may not come into play, but he may not want to kill this character off. He may have more in store for her. He may want to help continue having her on the show. She's a fun actress. I've really enjoyed. I had never seen her before this show. This is a great opportunity for her, for people like me who really like her, to get to know her better as an actress and see what she can do.
The only thing that I can say, and I'm almost 99% that she survives, and I may be taking a giant L on this.
I'm sure I may be taking a giant L on this as well. And if we take an L, we will hear from you guys for sure. But I really don't think this is where they're going.
We will own that L. It's just, the only thing I'll say is that there has been a lot of chatter that there is some big event coming that's going to impact every single person within the big three somehow. And you could argue that is it, but just Kevin having twins, Isn't that enough of a big event that's going to impact the big three?
I agree. And I don't know, I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but if Madison passes, I don't know how that affects Randall as much. This is one of Kate's very good friends, so yeah, it's going to affect her as much. Randall doesn't know her as much. It would affect him that, of course, it's his brother, but they're on like weird, sketchy ground right now. I mean, that still needs to be a little more resolved.
If there is someone I'm worried about dying the rest of this season, it is Miguel. And I don't like saying that because I like Miguel, but we haven't seen Miguel in the future. It feels like that is a story that, okay, all of them are going to have to find a new way to try to help Rebecca moving forward. And that would impact the big three, I think, in a larger way, kind of in a totality of the family.
Yeah, I agree, especially since Miguel is someone who is helping to care for Rebecca right now.
See what you've done, This Is Us. We have spent 20 minutes talking about, like, what is this, a 15-second promo?
There's a lot to talk about with this. I mean, this is why this show is as good as it is. I mean, our last video, the review, which we'll link for you below, we talked for like 10 minutes about, you know, is that a ghost in the lake or not?
This is what happens, This Is Us. Thank you for making us all crazy, but you know what? Give us your theories. What do you think is happening with Kevin, with Madison? Are we going to take a giant L? Let us know in the comments. And if you do enjoy this video, subscribe to the channel. Support us further. In addition to the store, we have a Patreon, and that is also linked in the description. We'll see you guys here next time.